Alright, so have you ever found yourself really focused on what someone thinks about you? Or have you ever been consumed or stressed over the opinions of other people?
Yes.
Okay, I have. And I'm going to tell you a story from my life when I was. Whenever I was in middle school, so like your age, probably about 6th grade, I think, I was playing football, and then I also decided to try out for the basketball team. Okay, one detail, a couple details you need to know really about whenever I was in middle school. One, I was probably about maybe 4'5", yeah, Braxton's height. But I was like Gracie's weight with Braxton's height, so I was tiny.
Oh no, I'm taller.
I mean, I was like tiny.
I'm 4'7".
So I was tiny, and I kind of had some coordination, but I wasn't able to dribble with both hands. So that's one thing. So we get to tryouts, and I'm like doing really good dribbling with my right hand. Then they tell us to turn around and dribble the other way, but use our opposite hand. And I was like, oh no, I can't do this. I'm like, ugh. Like one of the kids who's just learning how to dribble. But that has nothing to do. But the reason I'm telling you this story is I tried out for the basketball team because I felt like I needed to be accepted. I needed to play another sport so that I can have more friends. I felt like I needed, people would look at me better because I played basketball, even though I also played football. There's just things that I thought I needed to do so that I could be more popular, and it relied on my image. And I bet you guys have had some sort of insecurities like that too, like where you've wanted to do something because it'll help you look better with other people. I'm going to go ahead and assume you guys have, because you're in middle school, and it's going to happen to you at some point in some way, that you've had some insecurities about something. In middle school and high school, you guys are super aware of the opinions of other people. We are consumed with questions of whether or not we fit in, whether we're focused on how people see us, whether we are smart enough, whether we're good enough. These all are things that we think about. And sometimes we don't even realize it. For some reason, these years of our lives, our middle school and high school years, seem to be marked by one thing: insecurity. You know, the feeling of that uncertainty and that lack of confidence in your life. Maybe for you it's that insecurity over the way that you look. You constantly wonder if you're tall enough, if you weigh enough, if you have the coolest haircut, if you're wearing the right clothes, if you fit in enough. You spend a lot of time stressed out over the way you look and hope that other people notice, or that people don't notice. For others of you, it's an insecurity of fitting in. Are you funny enough? Are you popular enough? Are you smart enough to be accepted by other people? Are you fitting into that friend group because of how you look, or that is some questions that we have. You wonder if you're ever going to find that friend group that is your group that you can sit with at lunch, or that you're going to be around for the rest of your life. Or maybe for you, fitting in isn't a problem, that you have plenty of friends. And for you, you have to deal with those expectations that your friends have. You have to deal with the expectations not only of your friends, but of your family, of the people around you, of the people at church. You think that all these teachers and coaches around you, they all have great high expectations for you, and you get stressed out because of all those expectations. And it seems like everywhere you turn, there's pressure to hold you to the approval of someone else in your life. You don't want to disappoint anyone, so you try and do better at everything. And you don't want to let anyone down, so you try and help everybody, and you try and appease everybody. You don't want to fail in life, so you try and be perfect at everything. And you're stressed out simply because you're trying to keep up with everything. Now, some sort of self-awareness in our lives is not a bad thing. In fact, it can actually be a little bit helpful to be aware of our surroundings and what affects our lives. But this all-consuming feeling in our lives, of the insecurity and the stress and the worries, that's not healthy. Why? Because it keeps us stuck trying to figure out who we are and what we're doing and what we're supposed to do. And ultimately, it keeps you from living in the freedom of who God made you to be. I don't know about you, but I want to experience full freedom in my life. I want to be set free from everything. I want to live the way that God intended me to live, especially if it means that I can break free of all the stress and all the insecurities in my life. But how do we do that? How do we break free of the chains of people's expectations, break free of the people's opinions on our lives? How do we get away from all that stress? Lucky for us, the Bible has a lot to say about it, and we're going to look at a book of the Bible written by a guy named Solomon. We've talked about Solomon a lot, and Solomon wrote about stress 3,000 years ago. And Solomon actually wrote down dozens of wise sayings that we've read together in Proverbs. Now, before we jump into that, what I have to say is this. Solomon was the son of a king, King David. So, being the son of a king and being also the king of a nation brings a lot of expectations on you. So imagine Solomon who's having to deal with the expectations of one, being the king, but two, being the son of King David, one of the greatest kings to ever be in Israel. Imagine those expectations on your life and imagine having to live up to those. That's what Solomon had to deal with. And so what Solomon says about expectations, approval, and acceptance are important. So we're going to read Proverbs 29:25, the first part of it. It says, fearing people is a dangerous trap. I'm going to stop there. Fearing people is a dangerous trap. Some of you are thinking, fearing people, I'm not afraid of anybody. I'm not afraid of anybody at all. And so here's the thing. We're not talking about fearing people that you're going to get beat up by people. No, I'm talking about fearing the expectations, fearing the opinions of other people, fearing that you won't fit in, fearing that you won't meet their expectations, fearing you aren't enough. That kind of fear brings its own kind of anxiety, its own kind of worry, and its own kind of stress in itself. That is why Solomon said it's a dangerous trap. He knew that we would be trying to hide. And he knew that trying to be everything to everyone else and everything that everyone else is a trap that holds us back from experiencing the freedom that God has created us to enjoy. So if fearing people is a trap and keeps us trapped, how can we break free? This is where the rest of the verse comes in handy. We're going to read the rest of it. It says, starting at the first part, it says, fearing people is a dangerous trap, but trusting in the Lord means safety. Fearing people is a dangerous trap, but trusting the Lord means safety. You're probably thinking, so being stressed out about everything and what everyone says about me, you want me to just trust in the Lord instead of that? And what does that even mean? Is it even possible in my life? And listen, I get it. I get the idea of trusting God with everything and how it could be kind of like a hard thing to do, especially if we haven't given our lives to Christ. But his life, Solomon's life wasn't easy. His life was far from easy. Yet he still came to the conclusion that he was going to trust God with everything. He's speaking from experience. And I think that we can trust him. We can trust Solomon so we can trust God. Solomon wanted us to see that when we trust the things that God says about who we are, we will be safe. That word safety here means that we're going to be placed in a high position. We're not talking about physical safety. We're talking about this kind of safety that is emotionally safe. And that means that we can trust in God, that we will be kept in a place that it's above stress. We'll be kept free from our stress if we trust in God. And we get there by casting off the weight of our insecurities and our stress and instead placing our trust in God. Because here's this. Remember, God keeps you safe so you can trust in Him. So when you feel the stress of insecurity or the worries over other people's expectations, here's 3 things I want you guys to do this week. Number 1, identify the trap. What is it that seems to always trap you? Are you trapped by your self-consciousness? You can't stop thinking about what everybody else thinks about you? Are you always stressed about fitting in? Or do you feel trapped by the high expectations that someone else has on you? Do you feel the pressure to perform in class, in sports, or at home? Whatever it is, name that trap. Look for the thing that makes you feel your heart racing, that pit in the stomach feeling that we talked about last week. Because that's what stresses you out. That's your trap. Number 2, identify the trapper. Secondly, ask yourself, who is trapping you? Whose opinions or expectations are causing you stress? Is it a group of people at school? A friend? A parent? A coach? Maybe even yourself. Who's the trapper in your life? Who traps you? And this doesn't mean that this is a bad person. It just means that we may need to consider how much weight that we carry their words with in our life. Number 3, break the chain. Do you guys know how they kept elephants from running away in the circus?
No. They changed the name.
They gave him peanuts.
So so what they did was, whenever they were young elephants, like baby elephants, they tied a chain around their legs and then put it on like a stake in the ground so that they couldn't move, so like they wouldn't run away. And the elephants would try as much as they could to pull and go away, and so they wouldn't be able to. And so as they were kids, they learned not to pull away from the rope because they couldn't. And whenever they grew up, we obviously know that elephants could have pulled a stake out of the ground, right? Because elephants are huge and mighty. And they could have easily just pulled it and torn it out of the ground. But eventually, they gave up. They stopped tugging because they knew whenever they were babies that they couldn't pull it out of the ground. So from experience, they trained themselves that they couldn't do it. They trained themselves so they would never try. They didn't realize what they were truly capable of doing. It's kind of like whenever we feel we aren't strong enough to free ourselves from what's stressing us out. Things are tying us down. Things are weighing us down to where we can't do anything. And we can't seem to break free from the stress. But the good news is that you have the tools in your life to break the chains that may be trapping you. As Solomon told us, all you have to do is put your trust in God. So the next time you find yourself feeling trapped in stress or the worries of who you are or the expectations on your life, just simply say to yourself, I trust you, God. I think you'll be surprised at how much power that simple little sentence has to break those chains of insecurity in your life. Those chains that are keeping us trapped and keeping us stressed out. And you can go one step further. Instead of worrying about how other people's opinions are of you, place your focus on the fact that God made you exactly how you are on purpose. He knows why He made you, and He knows the way that He made you. He knows the future He holds for you. And when you start putting your energy toward trusting God, you can rest assured that you'll be kept safe and secure because He's the one that made you. Other people's opinions and expectations of you will change, but take comfort in knowing that God's opinion of you will remain the same. Now, for some of you, this is going to be easy to do because you've already given your life to Christ. Trusting with your stresses and your fears, they're going to be easy for you to do. You already know what it means to trust God with part of your life. And you feel sure that you can do the same whenever you get in those stressful or trapped situations in your life. But for others of you who haven't fully trusted your life with Christ, it's going to be sounding a little far-fetched. You don't know if God is even real, and you don't know if you can fully trust Him anyways. So how are you going to trust Him with the stresses or the trapped feeling that you have? If that's you, then I say, why not? What do you have to lose in trusting God with that? Don't you want to be set free from your stress and from your anxieties and from your trapped feeling? When we allow ourselves to stay trapped by the opinions and expectations of others, we miss out on being the people that God created us to be and the things that He has created us to do. So the good news is that you have everything you need to begin breaking those chains and getting out of your trapped insecurity. You have God, and God keeps you safe so you can trust in Him. I'm going to say it again. God keeps you safe so you can trust in Him. What if you really began to live your life this way? How would it truly change your life to trust in God, the only one who can keep you safe? You guys are about to head into small groups, and as you do, I want you to think about this question. What's one insecurity or expectation that makes you feel trapped or stressed out? Let's pray. God, I thank you so much for sending your Son, but also for letting us be able to have our stresses and you take them and set us free from those. God, I pray that we will give our lives over to you, give all our stresses, our anxieties, our trapped feeling over to you so that you can bless us and use us the way you want us to be used. It's in your Son's name we pray.